cast their face in shadow, so you can't tell. And they, I mean, yeah, so, and they also, if you look closely, they have no navel.
Of course.
Why are they an older couple?
Because I wanted them to be. I mean, why do we assume that God created Adam and Eve and made them young people, other than they procreate better?
Correct.
But other than that, there's no other reason.
Correct.
I did not want them to be white because the evidence is pretty overwhelming that the human race began in the Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania. But then I was having dinner, I was teaching at Princeton when I started this. And I mean, I was there as a fellow for 2 or 3 weeks, whatever it was. And I was having dinner with a bunch of folks there in the English department. Joyce Carol Oates was there. And, damn it, I'm blaming my memory for that. So over dinner, somebody said, I told them that this is what I was going to do, and Joyce said, well, you'll have the audience right off the bat if you do that, make them black. And I said, but then another guy, whose name I can't remember, said, but racial characteristics didn't develop for another 100,000 or 200, or whatever it was. So he said, your point, while interesting, is scientifically invalid. Okay. So therefore I put them in the background. If you read the book of Ezekiel, it says that God's voice is like that of many waters. So I announced this, the waterfall of waters. So the main character here is not Adam and Eve, but God. And they're in the forest, and the forest is both deciduous and, what's the other one?
Evergreen.
Evergreen is opposite of deciduous, right? Mm-hmm. They're both universal. And somewhere back in here is Satan. And I hit him so well, I can't find him.
Is he a snake?
Or maybe her. I mean, who's to say that Satan is a man? Milton tells us.
Where did he say it was? Like
But this
that,
doesn't.
right?
Yeah.
He's somewhere in here, hiding behind something. Anyway, so that's the story about him.
I like this. You can find.
There are, the illustrations occur, test this out, I'm not sure anymore. I think that you can't go more than 8 pages without finding an illustration. Okay, we went 2, and we went 4.
So did you
This
did
is
over
the,
like 300 or?
I did over 300. 267 got into the book. This is Noah. Noah in the ark. Well, that's a corny image too, the way you see it with little animals going up to the ark. Well, hell, just think about it. I mean, a storm coming. This is a storm brought on by whom? By God, and by God, it's going to be horrendous. So, and then you think about the death and destruction of the flood. Innocent people, animals that are dying. Anyway, so I wanted to get that in there, a sense of the impending storm. And you'll see a cat right here. And it's interesting to note that cats are not mentioned in the Bible. Ever. So I corrected that error. So 1, 2, nope, still there. Tower of Babel. 1. I'm not going to do this long, but not, you see, you can't go very far without finding another image. Yeah. And so, anyway, it goes on. So I brought this in, and I want you to feel free to look at it as you wish. It is not precious. This thing is designed to be handled, but with clean hands. So if you're printing, we've got some rubber gloves out there that you can put on. I would prefer it if you really scrubbed like you were in an operating room, and then come back to it so you can feel it. Because with rubber gloves, you're not feeling it. This is very textural. The type here is pushed into the paper. It's not on top as an offset lithography. The trade book that I brought in, that's offset. There's no impression in the paper.
What kind of paper
Zircon, it's called Zircon Bibble. It was made for the project by the Zircon Mills. And then for the Super Deluxe, we had handmade paper. I was telling somebody that story yesterday that this project for 400 books, it cost $2 million. And well, that's kind of why it's expensive to buy.
Oh, yeah.
And I was doing a talk at Purdue out in Indiana. And there's a couple there, Howard and Catherine Clark. They own Twin Rocker paper mills. And they've been old friends. So we were having lunch. And Catherine asked me, she said, how many of these books are you going to make on handmade paper? I said, none. Not in the budget. She said, that's a downright rotten shame. You know. What would you say if we made enough paper for 3 copies? One for you, one for Bruce, who's my angel, and one for you. I said, let me ask Bruce. Bruce Kovner, his name is. So I emailed him. What do you think about this? He wrote back and said, I think it's a great idea. Except I think we ought to print 50 on handmade paper. Now this paper costs about $3 a sheet, so you get 4 pages out of it. You get 4 leaves, you get 8 pages. That paper, it runs like $10 or $12 a sheet. And immediately the budget went up about $150,000. It was easy for him to say. But unfortunately, we didn't sell enough to recover the money.
Ooh.
So he lost, well, we were $1 million short. Yeah. So now he formed a foundation and is giving them away to various institutions and what have you. And I'm sure there's a tax write-off in there somewhere. Yeah. You don't make he's an interesting man. I'll tell you this little story, then we'll go to work. Kovner was born in California in the San Fernando Valley, grew up there, was a very fine athlete and a very fine scholar. He got a scholarship to Harvard, an academic scholarship to Harvard. He got an athletic scholarship to play basketball at Harvard, which he did both. He graduated, I think, magna cum laude, maybe summa cum laude. He went to the Kennedy School of Government. Oh, and the house he lived in California, he showed me photographs. It looked just like the house I grew up in. And his mother could be my mother's twin sister, not stepsister. So he went to Harvard, went to Kennedy School for Government, was in a PhD program, thinking he might become an academic, so in economics. And he developed writer's block and dropped out of Harvard because he couldn't finish his dissertation. He went from Cambridge to New York City and for 2 or 3 years drove a taxi cab. And he was trying to get people on Wall Street to pay attention to him, give him a little time so he could run an idea he had by somebody, and nobody paying attention to a cab driver. So he took an advance on his credit card, $2,500, and over the years turned it into $7 billion. So $2 million.
Wasn't such a big deal for me.
Yes.
Losing a 20.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
It's a bummer, but
He invented the hedge fund, or so he says. He says he didn't, but the Wall Street Journal says he did. So anyway, enough about the book. It's solid.